everyone, this is Women's Grandmaster Sabina Feuscher. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today, I'm bringing you one more video in my Endgame series for beginners on King and Pawn endgames. This is part 5 technically, and I highly recommend you to watch them in order because you don't want to have holes in your fundamental knowledge. I'm going to link those in the description below as well as up here, so I hope you give me the chance to take you through the learning of King and Pawn endgames. Some themes that I've discussed in those, if you already know them, you might be able to skip them, but still you want to give them a shot just in case you're not sure. For example, opposition, shouldering, how to win, the box, key squares, and so on. Alrighty, let's get started with today's theme, which I've decided it to be the pawn race. It is very important to know how fast our pawns will make it to promote to a queen, and also how fast the opponent's pawns will make it, right? Because we are not playing just a game with just by ourselves, right? We actually have an opponent in front of us that we have to beat. So in this position, this is the way you count it. I mean, very naturally. Okay, so the pawn goes to h4, then h5, h6, h7, h8, right? So that is 5 moves. For black also needs 5 moves, but we can clearly understand that whoever's turn it is, they're going to promote first, and then the queen is going to not only check the other's king, but will also be controlling the promotion square of the other side, which means that they will not be able to promote, so we will be the ones winning. If it is white to move, let's just play it through. h4, a5, h5, a4, h6, a3, h7, a2, and now white promotes with check, and not only check, but is also controlling the promotion square of black. Going on to the next position, I've put the exact same one with black's turn, so obviously they will push this pawn. We push h4, there, here, a2, h7, and now they promote first. So you don't need to make all of these moves to know whether you're going to be winning or not. You can basically just count. This is what I want to teach you. Once we're dealing with a pawn race, you can just count it, and that way you might not actually get confused, like, wait a second, where was that pawn again? So if you know that it's 5-5, but you start first, then you are going to be the one promoting. Now, I've put one more position here that I think is important to understand. What about if the pawns are not really kind of on the same diagonal when they promote? What is happening? Well, in that case, of course, if it's 5-5, 4-4, or whatever the number, then both of you are going to promote. So even if one of you is first, like here, white plays first, and they'll go g4, we go b5, g5, b4, g6, right? So in this position, white promotes first, but they are not promoting with a check, and they are not controlling the promotion square of black's pawn. So in this case, black gets to promote to a queen, and the position should end in a draw unless you somehow fall for some skewering and you lose your queen, but you better be careful about that. So pawn race so far, I think it's simple, but let's move on to something a little bit more difficult. For example, this position. Now in this case, I've placed the kings on the diagonal where the promotion is happening, which means that now whoever promotes is not promoting with check. But let's see what happens. So for example, in this case, it is white to move, right? So they need 4 moves to promote, whereas black only needs 3. Technically, that wouldn't be so bad. So you can say, wait a second. Yeah, black will promote first, but then I get to promote second, and I should be fine. Well, you might want to think twice before you say that. Let's see what's happening. h5, a3, h6, a2, h7, queen, and now white gets to promote to a queen as well. But what do we have over here? Just because the kings are placed on the diagonal, it doesn't mean that now everyone is safe. Not at all. In this case, black can simply move their king somewhere, anywhere, where they give a check, all right? Anywhere away from the diagonal, they are checking and also skewering white. So the king needs to go, and now although they did promote, it was not safe for them. So this is something important that you want to remind yourself. Alrighty, moving on to my next position that I've prepared for you guys today, which is the following one. So here I have placed the kings a little bit differently. In this position, it is black to move. So although I have set up the position from white side, I want you guys to know that it is black to move, and we need to figure out what is going to happen here. If we count the moves of the pawns, we can see that black needs 3 moves to promote, but so does white. So if black is not paying attention and they actually go ahead with their pawn to promote, thinking that they will promote first, then in the end they will be skewered, which is a theme that we've seen in the previous position. So I will just make the moves on the board to double check everything with you and make sure you guys get it right. Yeah, so black promoted, but now white promotes second with a check queen. The king needs to move, and now white is the one winning. So we go back to the starting position and we ask ourselves, okay, so what to do then? I mean, you said we're talking about the pawn race. That's what a pawn race is. You need to start pushing your pawn as fast as possible before the opponent gets to promote. And that is true. But remember, I've also mentioned that we are not the only ones playing the game. There is an opponent in front of us, and sometimes you have to take a step back, understand what they want to do, stop them from what they want to do first before proceeding with your own plan. And this is where previous video knowledge will come in handy. Here we are going to get our king in the box of white's pawn. Alright, so if you haven't watched that video, be sure to check it out first, or go back to review it. So let's figure out what is the box of this pawn here in h5. The box is, if you remember, you're going diagonally all the way to the promotion rank, and we're creating that triangle, and then we are doubling that triangle over here. So the box is between h5, h8, e8, and e5. All right, so if black's king is anywhere within this parameter, then they are going to be able to stop the pawn. So that is our next choice in this position for black. We will go for king e5, entering the box of white's pawn, and now we want to start pushing our own. Okay, sounds good, right? So if, for example, now white would love to enter in the box of this a pawn, but unfortunately they are too far. Let's double check the box of this pawn, right? It's this one. So, all right, what should white do? If they push the pawn, black will go king to f6, right? Because that's why we enter the box of the pawn, to keep following the opponent's pawn and capturing it eventually, right? So now the king will be able to stop that pawn, while white's king is way too far from stopping this one. So once black will have stopped the h-pawn, maybe capture it as well, they will go with the a-pawn to win. So king e5 is a very important good move. We're going to promote this variation. All right, so now let's think for white as well. They really don't want to let black enter in the box of this pawn, so they will play king g5. This is called shouldering and opposition, right? So those videos come in handy as well. Now we are restricting black's king from following the box of our pawn. Now if they choose to push the pawn once again, well, the same thing will happen as before. Black promotes, but now white promotes and skewers black. So now it is white who is winning. So king g5 is, of course, the only good move for white. And it seems like it is working. But not quite yet, because white does not do anything to push the pawn, to reduce the box, right? To make it smaller. So instead of doing that, they shoulder. And so this means that if black manages to circle around, they might be able to enter in front of this pawn. So we are going king to e6. This is the correct move in this position for black, trying to continue having the idea of entering in front of this h-pawn and stop it from promoting. So now if white were to play h6, we can play king f7, entering this new box, and stopping the pawn. h7, king g7, followed by this pawn will push. Once again, white's king is way too far. All right, so king e6. All right, you're trying to enter. So let's exercise shouldering once again. King to g6, stopping this king from getting in front. And now you can realize that, look what just happened. I've tried to enter, but they stopped me. But in the same time, because they didn't push their pawn, the rank of our pawns hasn't changed. But now something did change, and that is this long diagonal, which means that now if we start pushing our pawn, white pushes theirs, we push a2, white pushes theirs, we push a1 queen. The queen controls the promotion square and can stop that pawn from promoting, which means that black is now winning. So by being able to utilize those themes we have learned, we were able to win the game. So this is something very important. I really hope you enjoyed this position and kind of seen how all of these themes come together and help you win the game. All right, so now let us move on to my last position that I've prepared for you that I think is very, very important, and that is this position by Reti. Reti invented this position in 1921, and I think it's super important because it shows a new idea that I think you'll be able to utilize, and that is diagonals in chess are shorter. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but they really are. Let's see how that really happens. So what do we have here? We have a pawn race, right? We have white's pawn 2 moves away from promotion, but black's pawn is 4 moves away. So what does that mean? What does that mean to us? Well, it means something very important because we notice something else. We don't just notice the fact that our pawn is only 2 moves away and theirs is 4, but we also notice that their king is actually in the box, right? So the box of this c6 pawn would be over here, right? So if black's king is anywhere within this parameter, they should be able to stop the pawn. Okay, so what about our king? Well, let's not mistaken the side where this h-pawn is going, right? Our king is not in the box. The pawn comes down here. So the box of this h-pawn is within this parameter. All right? So basically, we are completely out of the box, and we find ourselves in a very, very difficult situation. So what to do? Obviously, if we push the pawn to c7, black's king will just come promote. We already know that. We know what the box means, and we know what it means that the opponent's king will stop us. And we clearly can see that if we try to reach the box of the h-pawn, it will go without a worry forward, and there won't be anything we could do to stop it. So here comes in Reti's idea, which kind of shows us in a way that diagonals are shorter, because as you move your king on a diagonal, in a diagonal way, you're going for 2 things at once. That is the cool thing about going on a diagonal. So as the king comes on towards the diagonal this way, not all the way here, don't worry, but we are having 2 ideas. One, to try to reach the box of this pawn, of our opponent's pawn, and another to try to support our own, okay? So this is basically what we're doing. We're going king to g7. Now black has 2 choices. 1, to try to go grab our pawn, and 2, to try to push this h-pawn towards promotion. So we're going to try to consider if they start pushing the pawn. So if they, and then we'll come back, of course. So h4 first. Now we continue going on the diagonal, king to f6. Now once again, we're going towards supporting our pawn, but in the same time, we're still keeping an eye to try to enter the box of this pawn. Say they push, and I'll go back, and every move I'm going to make a change so that you see what is happening if at any point black chooses to bring their king next to the pawn. All right, so now they go h3. And now we realize that, wait a second, we are never going to be able to catch this h-pawn. It's really way too far. So now what we will do is bring our king to support the c-pawn. They will push h2, and now we push c7. We're threatening to promote our pawn. If they promote theirs, we promote ours with check, and queen versus queen. This is a draw. Now let's go back to the previous move. What about instead of promoting, black suddenly decides to stop our pawn? In that case, our king has come close enough to actually protect the pawn and support its promotion. So whenever black promotes, now white promotes with check, the king needs to move, and once again, the position is going to be a draw. All right, you say. Well, what about if one move before pushing h2, black tries to attack this pawn? So we'll try that. King to b6. Okay, well, if that were to happen, now we need to protect our pawn, okay, because we're still very far. There's no way we will be able to enter the box of this pawn. So we're going to protect our pawn, then they'll play h2, we push c7, they promote, now we promote. Indeed, we don't promote with check, and they could check us here, in a way, as a skewer, but we always have king d8, and there's no way for black to be able to win this position. So once again, queen versus queen, we managed to save the game. Okay, let's go back one more move. What about if in this position they choose not to push h3? They choose to attack our pawn. Now in this case we cannot promote it, and we still cannot enter the box of this h-pawn. Here comes once again red's idea, king to e5. So we've marched our king diagonally, supposedly not trying to help anyone, right? But because we're going diagonally and we have two different ideas, we're actually approaching both pawns, and that's why we're able to save the game. Now we are threatening king d6 to protect our pawn, or king f4 to enter the box of this pawn. So if black chooses to take the pawn, we've made it right on time in the box of this h-pawn, which at this point became smaller, but we made it. We're going to be able to save the game. If in this position black does not take the pawn and they choose to play h3, then once again we made it right on time to protect our pawn. h2, c7, queen, queen. Once again, we'll have a draw. Alrighty, moving back one more time. So what about if in this position black doesn't push h4? We're back at the starting position basically. We've tried every single moment to utilize the king to stop the pawn. So if they go here, we still go diagonally, and if they choose to take the pawn, we've made it, right, in the box of the h-pawn. And if they push the pawn, once again, we go diagonally. We're always threatening two things, and amazingly, we make it, and we save the game. So this was Retty's position, which he invented in 1921. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and you had a lot to learn regarding pawn race. I'm going to be making more of these videos, so please stay tuned for that. If you like this video, thanks for giving me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that I know to continue more of these videos. And as always, thank you for watching, stay safe, and stay tuned for more. Bye.